Hello, this is Lee the History Boy with the second episode of this week's Fun Facts with Liam. And if you've seen the previous episode, that was about prehistory, and now we're going to be moving on to ancient history, antiquity. Well, actually, and also it could be classed as biblical history as well, because we're going to be talking about a Middle Eastern people called the Hittites, who were, legendary, uh, they're legendary to the point of myth as far as Hebrew scriptures are concerned. But they were very real people, probably even more proven to be more to have existed than, say, the Hyperboreans and Goliath and all that, the Philistines and all those kind of people. But I mean, people might think it's a it's a it's sort of astronomical thing of regarding the rights of people, certain people, women, women, which is the subject of the episode. But when you compare, when you compare, um, modern rights and stuff like that, we get a lot of that kind of reference and the attitudes of that are kind of left over from Georgian Victorian attitudes, where especially women like in the 1800s had basically very kind of narrowed down rights, especially when it came to like divorce and law stuff, which in comparison to the Hittite women that lived from 3000 to even from kind of even earlier, 4000-ish at least BCE, which it's still the difference in generations and timeline is amazing, really, in the fact that women 3000 separated by 3000 years at least, either had, depending where you were in the timeline. In Victorian times, you had basically little to no say as a woman, but spouses of court officials, of kings, of politicians, and so on. In Hittite culture, they more or less, in comparison, had equal rights, to their spouses. They could even go to testify in court about adultery, and have the right to divorce their husband if they so wished, and if the case was credible and all that kind of stuff. But it's basically in modern times, it's kind of unheard of, because, like I said, you have a lot of the later, in comparison, attitudes left over from the Victorians, where, and even into like early Edwardian stuff, so like early 1900s, which is still fairly modern. So then people are brought up with a certain system or attitude of, this is where certain people are supposed to be and remain, and it's unthinkable to try and change that. Whereas you go, but you think the opposite was true, or the same in comparison was true thousands of years ago, but it wasn't. It's like you can, you know, you watch like 300, and even though a lot of that is based on a comic and exaggerated, when you get to the actual politics side of it, you know, the women were very much respected as you know, as sort of equals in, say, let's say Spartan law, for example, where they had the right to testify and defend themselves and, and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, that was the second episode of this week's Fun Facts with Liam. And I'm going to do the last two episodes a bit later because I've got stuff I keep putting off I need to do. Well, the stuff that's on my mind, before it gets... I mean, it's late enough already, but whatever. So, to stop my waffling on, I will see you lot later.